Joining me is Pulitzer Prize winning reporter Alan Miller. He founded the News Literacy Project, an effort to teach students how to distinguish what's real and fake in the age of digital communication. It should come as no surprise that the News Literacy Project is growing as never before across the country, with teachers looking for resources to teach their students how to evaluate the credibility of information. Thanks for joining us today. So, how much harder has it become in the past few years for us to tell what is true and what is not true, especially for students?
So I started the News Literacy Project in 2008, and it was long before, there was the fake news, alternative facts, Russian disinformation became such a part of the zeitgeist. But our mission remains the same. We are creating resources and working with educators to teach students how to know what news and information to trust and to share and act on. It's an enormous challenge. We live in the most fraught information landscape in human history. Students have more good and credible information available literally at their fingertips, but it is competing for their attention with far more information intended to sell, persuade, incite, exploit, and misinform. And while they're digital natives, there's a growing body of evidence that they are not well equipped to navigate this ecosystem. So we believe this is a survival skill to give them the tools to be informed and engaged participants in a democracy.
So, what are some of the products, the tools that you have that you're already publishing and that you've been putting out that people can, whoever watching the live stream, can kind of find on your site?
Well, we have a lot of tools and resources on our site at newslit.org. In addition, our prime path to scale is the Checkology Virtual Classroom, which is at checkology.org. And it is a cutting-edge, highly immersive and engaging platform with 13 lessons led by diverse and dynamic journalists and experts on the First Amendment digital media, where students are given a grounding in being able to discern credible information. They're given an understanding and appreciation of the First Amendment, the role of a free press in a democracy, and introduced to concepts like the role of algorithms to personalize information, misinformation, and given the ability to really become responsible in everything they create and they share, and to empower their voices.
And you've also got weekly newsletters that pull up together things, right?
So we have a weekly newsletter. We call it The Sift, and it takes that week's viral rumors, conspiracy theories, hoaxes, journalistic ethics issues, turns them into timely lessons with discussion prompts and links for educators and for the general public as well. So this can be a complement to what we do with Checkology, or it can stand alone. It's great for educators, and it's available for the general public. This is the stuff of dinner time conversation, water cooler conversation, and is incredibly timely in terms of the challenges as they're emerging on a daily basis.
You're a nonprofit, right?
Yes, we are a national educational nonprofit.
And how are you funded?
We have a diverse funding stream. We have a number of foundations supporting us. I'm proud to say that we are part of the Knight Foundation's new initiative on restoring trust. They've given us a very generous 5-year grant to help us scale and continue the work we're doing. We have a number of other foundation funders, corporate funders, and individuals, and we also generate earned income from Checkology and some of our other programs.
Hey, when you look at this landscape, and when you were working as a reporter, what fact-checking was versus what fact-checking needs to be today, it seems that journalists need to learn a whole different set of skills.
Well, there's no question. The environment has become far more challenging even since I started NLP in the last 11 years and left my career as a newspaper reporter. So if it's, of course, we were talking about the fact that we've got deep fakes now coming that, people could literally say, I saw that person say that, I heard that person say that. So journalists are having to develop these new tools to stay ahead of this rising tide. And if it's challenging for journalists,
right.
For students, who are living on their devices, they are getting news, but it's largely disaggregated. It's mixed in with everything else that's not intended to inform them in a credible and dispassionate way. Is incredibly difficult. So one of the things we say is that we want to teach students to think like journalists, because in an information age, everybody is their own editor and everybody can be their own publisher. So how do students do this in a way that is credible and responsible and empowers their voices?
So what are your kind of top 5, top 3 tips when students ask you, how can I get smarter? What should I look for?
Well, the first thing we say is to pause. Before you hit the button, to share, to forward, or to act on something, to ask yourself, What is it I'm looking at? Can I tell who created it? Where did this come from? Is it a reputable source? What are the sources that are in this information? Are there multiple sources? Are they expert? Are they a witness? What's the documentation? Is this something that's intended to inform me, or is it intended to incite emotion? Does it inflame? Can I look at the information and judge for myself its credibility? Are there multiple points of view? Is there bias here? Is this clearly intended to elicit some kind of action? What about my own bias? We teach them about confirmation bias. What am I bringing to this piece of information that I'm looking at? And ultimately, we want them to ask themselves these questions. Is this something I should trust? Is it something I should share? Is it something that I should act on? And we want to give them kind of a new ethos of personal responsibility where they become part of the solution rather than part of the problem in this information ecosystem.
Now, what's the challenge then? Right now, is it the range of new platforms that seem to be opening up on different tools that kids have to do face swaps and whatever else? I mean, to start creating content of their own, to try to get that same ethos to flow through wherever they're sharing?
Well, I think the first challenge is to give them the tools to make those judgments, right? Because as complex and fraught as the landscape is, as you and I both know, even in the most credible sources, bias creeps in, mistakes get made. If you go to a reputable news website, there will be news, opinion, advertising, right? So, and that's before you get to the place where people are actually making things up for profit or ideology or to create mischief. So the key thing is to instill that critical thinking skill while they're creating habits of mind and consumption habits will last a lifetime. And then the challenge is, yes, I mean, there is just exponentially more sources of information that is being created to mislead and to exploit and misinform of greater and greater complexity. And so we've got to get students to be very mindful and skeptical, but not cynical about what they're consuming and creating. To understand it's all not created equal, that there are reputable sources they can go to find information that is really is actionable and trustworthy.
Are you optimistic?
Well, I'm realistic.
Okay.
We like to talk about challenge and opportunity. And particularly in the early years when I'd started NLP, I spent a lot of time in classrooms, and you could see that students, sometimes they trusted everything. Sometimes they were already cynical and didn't trust anything. We have had students in classrooms who have literally said, "What is news?" I mean, they may be getting it through the device, but they don't know they don't know to differentiate. So on the one hand, I've felt at times enormously discouraged. I said, "How are we going to push this boulder back up the hill?" But by the same token, there's this huge opportunity. There's a growing recognition, particularly in the last couple of years, about how vital this is. It's a survival skill in information. It's really teaching literacy, for a digital age. And so there's growing awareness. We are getting growing support. We're getting growing traction. We're in schools in every state in the country. We've had over 5,000 educators use Checkology, reach over 122,000 students. It's a drop in the bucket with 30 million students in public and independent schools in middle and high schools in the United States, but it's a start. So I think I'm hopeful that we're going to move forward and realize our aspiration of seeing news literacy embedded in the American educational experience.
I was going to say, this is not a blue state, red state thing. You are working every type of classroom around the country.
Yes, we are rigorously nonpartisan. It is absolutely vital for us, and that's a kind of DNA that I bring from having been a journalist for 29 years, and that we've embedded in what we do. And we are in red states and blue states. We're in urban areas and rural areas, and we're very proud of that fact. Proud of being able to give teachers in a very challenging environment to teach about civics and truth and journalism, to give them a tool that is effective and nonpartisan and safe, and that they're able to use in this manner.
All right. Alan Miller, a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist and with the News Literacy Project. Now, you're based in Maryland, is that right?
We're actually based in D.C.
Based in D.C. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure.